Hey everyone, welcome back to 25 Sweetpeas and back to the Christmas 2021 series. Today I'm going to be showing you how to draw this little figgy pudding bundt cake inspired illustration. All you need to get started is an iPad, your Apple Pencil, and the app Procreate already downloaded. So let's go. Also, one more thing, if you need any refreshers or a beginner course, I do have a little intro video linked down in the description box below. So now for real this time, let's get started. Okay, let's get started. I've got a 3000 by 3000 canvas. I'm going to go into the layer panel and change the background color to kind of a light sky blue sort of color. And of course you can do whatever, but this one's going to contrast with the design we're working on today the best, I think. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my 6B pencil and grab my sketching color, which I like to use like a navy-ish blue. But of course you can use whatever. And on layer 1, I'm going to go ahead and rename it Sketch. And maybe I'll continue on naming layers. It's a great idea in theory, but I never really remember to do it. Next up, I'm going to go to the canvas and the little wrench. I'm going to go to the drawing guide, turn it on, and then I'm going to turn in the grid size all the way up, pick a contrasting color. That way I can just kind of like gauge the center of my canvas and also kind of have a line to kind of base everything off of. So on my sketch layer, today we are drawing the little thing on the side. As you guys can see, it's kind of like a bundt cake meant to look like a figgy pudding on a cake stand. So I'm going to go ahead and do like a really rough sketch here. So I'm going to kind of draw like a cross, an exaggerated cross, so we can kind of envision where the cake stand will be, where the cake will be, and kind of just sketch it all in and line it up with the grid lines that I have there. I have one in the middle. And I'm going to base it off that. Now that I've kind of got that really rough, quick sketch, I'm going to turn it down in opacity, create another layer on top of it. And also I'm going to resize that one real quick and then go back to the new layer and kind of make sure it's right in the center. Now I'm on the new layer and we are going to sketch the proper kind of like final sketch on here. So similarly to yesterday, how we created the cake where we kind of did the oval, then we duplicated the oval and we moved it down using the snapping tools and then connecting them, that's the same exact thing. We're going to keep the layers separate for now. We're going to add a layer on top, connect the sides, as you guys can see here. And this one, you can do a pretty straight line. You can use a straight line tool, but you can also eyeball it. It's kind of just up to you and whichever works best. But long as they're lined up, you should have no problem connecting these. Then I want to go find the bottom layer. That's the top. Okay, this one's the bottom layer, and I'm going to go erase that. Oops, I'm going to erase the back line there, so now it actually looks like a object rather than like a diagram of some sort. And now we've got the base of the cake stand going. Well, not the base, but like the part the cake's going to be on. And next up, we're going to go ahead and work on the base. And I'm going to do this on a new layer because we're going to kind of use the digital aspects to our advantage here. I'm going to draw the curve on one side and try to do it on the other, but that never works for me. So I'm going to take the one, I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to use the little arrow tool and just kind of flip it horizontally and pull it over until I get the thickness that I like. Then I'm going to grab those two layers, pinch them together, and I'm going to center them. So this kind of just needs to be centered with the guidelines that I already turned on, which we're getting close. Okay, and as I can see, since those are centered, the main part of the cake stand is not. So I'm going to go ahead and center that as well, and then it should look like it makes sense and like it would hold a cake on top. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my sketch, and I think they're a little too narrow at the bottom, so we're going to go back to the like base of the cake stand layer and just select one side of it using the little like selection tool, pull that over, and I like that width, and just make sure it's centered again. I didn't have to change it that much, but now we've got that going. It's looking more like what we are after here. As you guys can see, a little sketch in the corner. That's what it's based off of. If you guys don't already know, I have a downloadable that you guys can get if you're signed up for my emails, where you will have like line art versions of these to color each day, as well as learn how to draw them by doing line art. So now I'm going to go in and create the base here. I'm going to do the same circle thing that we've been doing for like the cakes and the cake stands. And I'm going to go ahead and erase that back line in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and make sure these match up. There we go. Now I'm going to go and grab the eraser and erase that back line, and now everything looks proportionate. Okay, so now that we've got that, I can go ahead and pinch all of the cake stand layers together, and I'm going to lower that a little teeny tiny bit because we want to put the cake on top. So on a new layer, go ahead and start sketching your cake. I'm not making this like any sort of perfect shape. It's going to be a little lumpy and wonky, and because we're going to put icing on the top, that's like perfectly fine. But you're going to do like a really elongated, exaggerated U shape at the bottom. Remember, this is kind of in the shape of a bundt cake, so kind of think of that. They're kind of flattish on the one side, and then of course they go up and they're rounded. But we're going to be adding icing on here, so we don't have to worry about the top so much. I am going to make sure that is centered, because if that is centered using the grid lines, that means it's also going to be centered on the cake stand because we've already made that all centered. So go ahead, sketch in the lines and make it like you like it. Again, remember, this is still a sketching phase, so your lines do not have to be perfect by any means because we're going to be drawing on top of them. So now I kind of grabbed like the middle of the top part to like signify where we're going to put the toppings, but I went from there and kind of just did the icing. I wanted it to be like it was flowing down the side of the cake and thicker than the cake as well. So as you guys can see on the edges there, it's further off the cake. It doesn't line up perfectly, which is perfect for this thicker icing. And now we're going to go ahead and erase that back cake stand line by going back to the cake stand layer. Now we're going to go back to the cake, and we're going to put on where we want like our little holly sprig, I guess you would call it. And I like to do it in like 3 berries, and then I'll do the leaf. As you guys can see here, I put the main line to work around, and now I'm doing the holly leaf. You could do 2 or 3, it just depends on what you want. I'm gonna stick with 2 because I feel like it looks pretty proportionate. And now we've basically got the sketch. So I went ahead and merged all of those to one layer so I could center them all together on the canvas. I'm going to go ahead and turn the sketch layer onto a multiply blend mode, turn the opacity down, and start sketching underneath it. Also, I'm going to go ahead and name this. So this one's called Final Sketch. And then I'm going to pull down that layer 3 underneath it, and I'm going to work underneath it. I'm going to go ahead and name that one Color. See, I'm being a bit better today about naming all the layers. Pull that one down underneath, so that way I can create using the sketch, but I can also still see the sketch and not cover it up. So now it is time to start picking your colors. Of course, you guys are welcome to use whatever, but I am working in this very sort of limited color palette. It just makes things easier for me. And I think it'll also make this whole fun 12 Days of Christmas video series better because they'll all look good together. So I'm going to be using a pink for the cake stand. You can use a 6B pencil still for this. You can make it a little bigger or chunkier, or you can go grab like an inking brush, but I'm definitely sticking with the pencil this. It has nice, really crisp lines, so it allows me to get the cake stand to be rather crisp and precise. But of course, I'm not really majorly worried about it because I'm using the guidelines that we've already given ourselves from the sketch, which makes this part so much more fun. Okay, we're about done with this. Now, when we move on to coloring the next part of the cake stand, I'm actually going to do it on another layer, and I'm going to put it behind the one we were just working on. I'm going to color within that because we're going to add some shadows onto this, and it'll just be easier if we have these little pieces on different layers. My brush was too big though, so we're going to start fresh here. And follow the sketch lines. Again, you don't have to worry about it being super precise. They are there as guidelines, and we're not worried about it being so precise. We're just having fun, right? Okay, gonna color that in. I don't know what's up. I'm on the 5.2 with the patch update, and I think maybe there needs to be one more. I'm having a lot of instances where things are like going out, but I still love it. Okay, so I turned off the sketch. We're looking pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn on alpha lock by swiping with 2 fingers on that layer on both of the parts of the cake stand. Now I'm going to use a clipping mask on top of the top part of the cake stand, and I'm going to go change my color a little bit by turning down the brightness and turning the saturation up a bit. And you can see how that contrasts with the pink, yet it's still the same color family and it's still basically the same pink. So we're going to add some sort of like shadows on the edge because we want to give the illusion that this is rounded, very similarly to what we did yesterday on the cake, but it's really important on the edges here. And also in this one, let's go ahead and put in the shadow of where the cake is going to be too. It looks a little crazy right now, but we're getting there. I'm going to go ahead and use my ink brush blender that I've already got set, and I'm going to blend out those sides until I am happy and content with how that looks, and it kind of gives that round illusion. Now we're going to go and work on the next part, which is the bottom part of the stand. I'm going to add a layer above it and then turn on a clipping mask so it can only draw on that. I'm going to go ahead and use the same color and the same brush and put like this dark shadow underneath the cake stand. I want to add a little bit of an angle, and I want to put some shading on the sides of the stand to again give it that rounded like look. And I'm going to go ahead and blend that in to give it some softer edges. Now it looks a bit more like a natural shadow, and it's given that nice shape to the flat object. Okay, so now that I like it, I'm going to go ahead and merge the little shadow parts with their counterparts of the cake stand, and then I'm going to group the cake stand all together and go ahead and name it cake stand so we know where it is and we can easily find it in our file. Okay, now I'm going to add a new layer on top, and we're going to start constructing the cake here. So I'm not really sure what the flavor of this cake would be, but we're thinking it's a darker cake, maybe gingerbready, but it's also meant to represent a figgy pudding. So, you know, I just feel like it needs to be a darkish brown. So we're going to go ahead and kind of create that and just keep doing that until you like it. I found a brown tone that I liked, and then I kept adding darkness to it and got it to the point where I liked it. And now I'm going to use my 6B pencil, and I'm just going to follow the outline that we already illustrated. I'm not going to worry about the top part being super precise because, you know, it doesn't matter. It's going to be covered in icing. So I'm going to color that in, and then we're going to move on to the next part. I feel like this piece goes really, really fast because, I don't know, it's just simpler than maybe yesterday's. Maybe we should have started with this, guys. Now that I've got that part done, I'm going to turn on the alpha lock, and I'm actually going to go and grab a more textured like charcoal brush, turn down the darkness a bit, the color, turn up the saturation a little bit so it's the same shade of brown, and I'm just going to add some little textury bits here and there, make it look more like a actual cake. And I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller, and I'm going to follow the outline of where the icing is going to be and thinking about like which side the shadow would fall on. And I'm just going to add that underneath where the icing will be. And once I'm good with that, I'm going to go ahead, turn off the sketch, see how it looks, make sure I've got it lined up pretty well. Add some more shadows on the bottom of the cake. And now it's time to add a new layer, grab white as my color, go back to my 6B pencil, and it is time to put on the icing, ice the cake. And again, we're using the same guidelines that we already did in our sketch, which makes this process, or this part of the process, so much simpler because we don't really have to think about where things go. We know where they go. It's just time to color. And in this case, we've already got the shadowing done, which is pretty cool. In the top part, you don't have to worry about it being super precise. As long as you've got that nice rounded bundt cake top shape, you are good to go. I am still going to go ahead and color this in with the 6B pencil. I really love the texture of it. And as I mentioned in another video, this 6B pencil is one from a set that I bought. I believe the creator is Sadie Lou, and the brush set is called the Drawing Box, and it's one of my favorites. I bought it on Design Cuts, and I will link it in the description box below. There is a 6B pencil that you guys can use that is built into Procreate, but I will say that I like this one better. It has a nicer texture. It size-wise works better, I feel like, and it has a really nice flat edge. And overall, the 6B pencil in this set is just one of my favorites. So now that we're done with that, I want to add a little bit of definition on the icing. So I've actually gone in and added a little bit of black to my white to give it a little bit of a gray tone. And I'm just adding it here and there where I think that there might be a little bit of a shadow. And I'm going to go ahead and put it under where we're going to have the holly berries, and I'm also going to blend it out. So it's very, very subtle. And in all honesty, a lot of people probably wouldn't notice it, but I know it's there, so it'll make me feel better. You know, sometimes it's like the little details that we add in our art are just for ourselves. Not many others will notice it, but we noticed. Now, I feel like we still need a little bit more shadow for the underneath the icing, so I'm actually going to go back to the cake layer and add a little bit of a darker brown right underneath the icing, keeping it really, really close just to get a little bit of a sharper shadow. And I feel like that really, really amped it up a little bit, like the littlest detail, but I like it. Now I'm going to go add a layer on top of the icing. I'm going to grab a red color. I'm going to kind of deepen it to a little bit of a maroony red. And it's time to start putting in the holly berries. I am going to go ahead and do the berries all on one layer. And I'm also going to freehand these circles. I'm not going to worry about them being like perfectly precise. I'm going to go ahead and alpha lock them and then deepen the shade of my red a little bit and give it a shadow on one side of all of the berries, as you guys can see here. Then I'm going to blend that in a little bit. This is going to hopefully help it make it look a bit more rounded. And then when I'm done with that and I'm content, I'm going to go ahead and change the color into the opposite realm and really, really lighten this red to almost a pink tone and give the little berries a little bit of a highlight. Now from afar, that looks great. Up close, you know, but up from afar, it looks really good. And now it's time for the leaves. So here, I'm going to go ahead and grab a green shade. I'm kind of using a mossy-ish green, I would say. And I'm going to go ahead and trace my leaf outline. Fill those in. Again, I'm still using that 6B pencil. Okay, one more. And we're about done with the leaves. Now, I could leave the leaves here, but I feel like we need more. We need some shadows, some depth, some texture. So I've gone in and I've alpha locked, I've turned up the saturation, turned down the brightness, and we've gotten a darker shade so I can put a shadow behind the berries on the leaf. Let's see, you can see it now better without the sketch. And I'm going to go ahead and add in some line work to the leaf with that same darker shade. Try this. I don't really love that, so let's see if we can work something else out. I'm not really sure just how to draw folly leaves. I'm thinking I like just the straight line, but maybe we should kind of like blend it out. Let's see. Okay, we're getting somewhere. I'm going to make that little shadow a little bit stronger, and then I'm going to blend it out with my smudge brush. Okay, I'm already liking that a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and smudge out that line. That looks pretty good. See, this is what I mean. You kind of just, you're making it up as you go. You're improvising, you're learning new things, and adding some shadows on the edge of the leaves really added something. I'm going to go ahead and keep using that same smudge brush, which I have set up as my inking brush. Gives a really nice smudge texture. Okay. Okay, I think we're to the point where I like it enough, and I think though we need a little bit more of a shadow underneath the berries and the leaves. So I've gone back to the icing layer, I've added a layer on top of it, and we're just adding in some more shadows underneath the cake topping. I'm gonna clipping mask to that so it only stays on the icing and doesn't go to our background. And there we go. Let's smudge that out a little bit more and give it a little bit on the sides, smudge it out. It's just these like little things that really add to it and make things feel more complete. Okay, we are about done. I am pretty happy with how this looks, so I'm actually going to go ahead and grab all of the cake parts, select them, and group them into a new layer, and we're going to call that layer cake. Now our file looks super organized, but we've got our final sketch, our cake, and we've got the cake stand. So I've added a new layer at the very, very bottom of the layer panel. I've turned it to a multiply blend layer, and we're going to give a little bit of a shadow underneath the cake stand. I'm using the same color that is our background, and actually I'm not liking it, so I think I'm going to go in and change the color a bit. I think it's a bit much. So I would turn down the brightness. There we go. I'm liking that. And now I'm going to just smudge that out, and that gives a nice little shadow for the cake stand. Just keep working it until you really like it. I'm going to add another layer, turn it on a multiply blend mode, and for all of these illustrations, I've been just adding some little background texture, and I've been using a brush by Gladys Things. It was one that she released as like a free for her email subscribers a while ago, and I really liked it, so I was just using that as a texture. I turned down the opacity a little bit, so it's just ever so slightly there, but really adds a little something something. And that is our final piece. Rather simple, really fun, and could make a really cute illustration just to do this holiday season. So that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I can't wait to hear what you guys thought. Again, all of this is rather new, so if you have any questions, anything you want me to add to future videos like this, please let me know down below, and I will definitely do my best to incorporate those into upcoming videos. Some are pre-filmed already, so you might not see those changes take place for a few videos, but they will happen and be considered, and I'm just really excited about adding more videos like this. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye!